Hey guys, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for this fantastic interview. This is episode 1166, and today I sit down with Scott Scovill. He's an award-winning live entertainment producer, entrepreneur, singer-songwriter, and the author of Tenacious. Now, he shares a remarkable journey, a journey that took him from crippling fear of failure and rock bottom to touring the world with the Rolling Stones. And we just go into an incredible discussion, particularly when he went through the COVID pandemic and what that meant for his businesses and the spiritual journey he went on after that as well. Remarkable discussion, guys. I really love this one. I hope you do as well. You can check out all the show notes, as always, at thehiddenwhy.com. The new website will be up and running probably within the next month, I hope, as well, all things going well. So stay tuned for that one. And guys, would love to connect with you. Reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, or directly through the website at thehiddenwhy.com. Enjoy this interview with Scott Scovill. Scott, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here.
It's really good to be here.
Whereabouts are you, mate?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee on a beautiful sunny day. And as I said that, a cloud rolled over the sun. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee on a partly cloudy day.
Tenacious in Tennessee.
Yes, Tenacious in Tennessee.
That's your new book, right? Let's talk about that, because you've got an incredible story.
Yeah, thank you. I hope so. And I was asked to write a book years ago, and I thought, why would I write a book? I think I've lived an interesting life, but it's interesting to me. Is it interesting to anyone else? And I decided it wasn't interesting enough. But then I realized that really the whole difference maker in my entire life has been not giving up. Like, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the best looking. I'm not the most talented. But when I find something I love, I don't give up. And that has made the difference for me. And I work in entertainment. I'm sure your audience doesn't really know who I am. I work in entertainment. And interestingly, all of the famous artists that are household names that I work with will all tell you the same thing. They all knew people that were more talented than they were. Not that they aren't wildly talented. But you've never heard of a lot of those people because they fell to anonymity because they gave up. And so if it's made all the difference in my simpler life and all of these incredible people that I work with, I thought, you know what, that is a story worth telling. And I went back to the publisher with it, and they were like, yes, tell that story. So here we are. Yeah.
What people want to hear. I just featured on a podcast myself called What Are You Made Of? And that's the question. So what are you made of? And I said resilience. I said, I think, I just keep going. What is Tenacious to you?
Tenacious to me, I came up with my own description for it because I kept sort of fumbling around it. And I'm like, no, let's just write it down. So this is the only thing I'll read the entire podcast. Tenacity is the inner fortitude to relentlessly keep going despite overwhelming obstacles in front of you and inside you. And that last part, I think, is often missed, and the part I like to talk about maybe as much as the rest of it.
It's probably the biggest hurdle for most of us, eh? It gets in our way.
Yeah.
So you've got a story of rock bottom, right? Like you were, and then by chance, I read your profile that Encounter with U2 helped them with one of their tours. And that's led you on a different path, but tell us a bit of your backstory there. Sort of helped them.
Well, I don't present myself as the most tenacious person in the world, but perhaps the most improved. When I was in high school, every time I tried to do my homework, I'd have an anxiety attack. And so I barely graduated high school. Despite that, I went on to college, but flunked out of college because, man, not doing your homework doesn't fly in college. And I was at this real rock bottom moment and trying to figure out what was going on with me. And my parents put me in to go see a psychologist, and I was open to doing that. And he diagnosed me with what he called a fear of failure so intense it would be easier for me to grab a red hot stove and maim myself than to actually try. And as crazy as that sounds, it
diagnosed you with that.
Yeah. I would, when I would try and do my homework, my brain would just start to get excited and I wouldn't really think straight, and then I'd start to sweat, and then I would have a full-on anxiety attack just trying to do my homework, which is kind of nuts, but that's where I was at. But the diagnosis was powerful, and I hit this rock bottom moment because I'm like, whoa, I'm afraid of failing, and that has now led me to where I am truly failing. Like, I am failing. If I don't graduate college, my life is going to be something far less than I thought it was going to be. And, you know, for a kid with fear of failure to suddenly realize that in the big picture he's completely failing was devastating. And at that same time, a girl that I cared greatly for was killed in a car accident. And man, rock bottom moment. But this amazing looking tour bus pulls into the Howard Johnsons that I was waiting tables at. And I was like, I want to wait on them. And it turned out to be U2's technical staff. And I was blown away that you could work for U2 for a living. And I had so many questions. And the first one was like, what do you mean? And it was a great answer. One of the guys, I said, like, I would have thought you had to be Bono's cousin to work for U2. Like, what do you mean? And he laughed. There were 8 of them at the table. And he said, well, Scott, we put on the show. 7 of us are the very best in the world at what we do. And he puts his arm around the guy next to him and goes, and this is AJ. He's Bono's cousin. And so everybody gets a laugh off of that. And AJ and I are friends, acquaintances at least to this day. Great guy. And I just was blown away. And they invited me to a show. And at that show, I asked a million more questions. But then the lights went out and the crowd went wild. And I stood there in the dark and just had this paradigm shift. I was like, this is it. This is what you're going to do with your life. You love music, you love technology, you love people, you love the idea of traveling the world with these incredible guys. Like, wow.
Aha moment.
Later, yeah, a great aha moment. Like the biggest moment of my life. But a moment later, I realized, my heart sank when I realized that I was going to have to try to do any of this. And that hadn't worked out very well for me in the past. But I made myself a promise there in the dark that I was going to start trying and never stop trying until that dream life was mine. And in that moment, I would say Tenacity was conceived. It wasn't birthed yet, but it was conceived. And from that moment forward, my life slowly started being something different.
It sounds like Tenacity was in you prior to that, but the fear of failure really stopped you from being tenacious.
You could say that, but if tenacity is an action, then maybe it wasn't. But I certainly had a lot of I've always been a dreamer. I've always had a lot of energy, and I've always been a hard worker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think a lot of the great ingredients were there.
Yeah.
But the biggest one, just the willingness to act, was overcome by fear.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you go about like cultivating tenacity with that previous mindset of, you know, the fear of failure that was quite consuming for you?
Yeah. Well, you know, I found a dream. So I always say step 1 is find something you love. Like if you're kicking yourself for not being tenacious about something, it needs to be something you love. And if it isn't, then give yourself a break, right? And find something you love is my advice. Yeah. And so I found something I loved. And that was motivation for me to make myself a promise. And then I sat in that promise for a couple of weeks and didn't know what to do with it. And I felt bad for not doing anything. But I had no idea what to do. Like, I want to be on the road with you too. So I want to be an astronaut. Why aren't I in space next week? Like, what do I do? Yeah. And 2 weeks later, I looked and I bought a T-shirt at the concert from a scalper in the parking lot for like $4 because that was my budget back then. And I looked and it had the dates on the back. And this is 1987. There's no internet. There's no Google. Like, you're not going to figure out where a band is unless the radio station tells you. That's it. Yeah. But the T-shirt told me. And I was like, well, they're in Europe right now, but they're going to be back in Long Island about 3 hours away from me in about, 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it was, 6 weeks maybe. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to figure out a way to get on that tour. And so that's what I like to call a first step. Like, granted, it was just a decision, but I was like, I am going to be there. I'm going to be there. Now, what the hell do I do? Well, I came up with the worst plan in the history of show business. It's just laughable. My plan was to sneak in and work for free every day. I was going to be a roadie, like a stagehand, work for free until they figured out that they wanted me around. But I knew that to do that, like if I just snuck in and started working, they would be like, kid, you got to get out of here. So I had to find a way to make it okay with them. So I actually waited at the hotel that they were going to be at. I went early, went to the venue, found the tour buses, waited for them to get off the tour buses. They just got back from Europe. And I ambushed one of the guys from the restaurant and said, hey, I know you can't say yes to this, but I want you to know that I'm doing it. And I know you can't give me permission, but I'm just going to be like, you have 50 stagehands every night. You're going to have 51 for the next little bit while I figure this out. And he was like, well, you won't be able to sneak in. And I said, I know. You don't think I will. And he's like, yeah. So just let me give you some advice. And anyway, long story short, for 5 weeks straight, I snuck in every night. I lived in my car. I drove all night instead of sleeping. I killed myself to try and get on the tour. And in the end, I actually didn't, which is the next best step in a tenacious journey.
Well, that's the failure piece, right?
Yeah, it's huge. Like, I was so terrified of failing, and I put 5 weeks and tons of effort and energy into chasing a dream, and I failed. I got in trouble with the union for being non-union labor in, I think, Buffalo. I should read my own book to remind myself. Buffalo or Syracuse, one of those. Wow. And the upper management of the tour found out about me. Now, in the meantime, the regular guys just thought they had kind of adopted me. I was like the mascot of the tour. Oh shit, he snuck in again, which wasn't easy, by the way. And I almost got arrested 3 times in those 5 weeks. But at the end of all that, they told me I had to go home. And I learned something from that I felt really great about everything I had done in those 5 weeks. And I felt like it wasn't over. Like I felt like I was learning to fail. Yeah. And that's what I really needed to do. But back to what everybody else needs to do, I think they need to find a dream, take a first step, and they just need to be ready to fail. Right? Like you probably don't have the pronounced fear of failure that I did, but fear is probably what's holding you back from your best life. It certainly was for me. Yeah. And that's what I think your listeners need to go for, is just stop being afraid and start doing it, whatever it is. Take some step towards that dream.
How old were you then?
19.
19.
Yep.
Young.
Yep. Yep, 19, the Joshua Tree Tour, an amazing moment in music, really exciting, and yeah, it was phenomenal.
5 weeks. Now that's tenacious.
Till I got thrown off. Yeah.
A lot of people say, like, find a dream, find a vision, start to really see yourself there. I mean, is that sort of how you did it? Like you said, that's it, I'm just going to follow them for 5 weeks, and this is how it's going to play out. Did you have a visual of it?
I had a plan. So you could say that. Yeah, I think that tracks with me. I wouldn't argue with it. I don't describe it as such, but who knows? Maybe I'll start describing it that way. But yeah, I had a plan. So yeah, I could see the plan. I've always been a dreamer. I've always been good at having plans.
Yeah.
So
well, a dream and a plan can be different, right? Because the plan doesn't always happen.
Right.
As the dream might be in your head, but having a dream, you said you're always a dreamer, like dream big.
Yeah. Yeah, I always have been. I still am. And I love.
Did you visualize yourself on stages with U2 or behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, yeah, that I did. Yeah, never imagined I'd be on stage. That, as you might know, has changed. I'm now on stage quite a bit, but at that point, I just wanted to be a part of it. I just wanted to be a piece of the magic. Like music has been like magic to me, and I wanted to touch it and be a part of it and help bring it to people. And that felt like a really incredible thing that I might be able to do with my life. And it turns out, gratefully, I still feel that way, 40 years later.
Talk to me about, like, wherever you are in life, whether you're 40 or 20 or 60, and you've got this dream, like you're in a place where you're just not loving life, right? And you've got this fear. but there is something inside of you that is calling for more. What went through your mind to go, you know what, I'm just going to take this time, 5 weeks. I mean, you're not getting paid. You're just going out on a whim.
Yeah, I quit my 3 jobs. I sold my Super Sport Camaro. I went all in. You know, I dropped out of school, but that's sort of like quitting your job the moment before your boss fires you. So I was on my way out. I went all in, and no regrets on it, but it was definitely scary. But I find that thinking about scary things is scary. For me and a lot of people I've talked to, the moment you start moving, it's less scary. The moment you start moving, there's just something about it. You go from the person who's afraid of doing something to the person who's doing it. Whether you fail or not, you don't know if you'll get there, but at least you're doing it. And
Taking
that
action.
Felt different to me. Not to say that the fear wasn't crazy, and I don't want to make it sound easy. It wasn't, even for a couple years after that, and endeavoring to, and finally getting, 2 years later, I was on tour with the Rolling Stones. So 21 years old, traveling 13 months with the Rolling Stones all over the world. I did make it to my dream. But even the first part of the Stones tour, and definitely those 2 years in between, there were times where I had to go hide and cry, because I was just done and just from the inside out, just sort of torn up and felt fragile. And I was a wreck. But that's why I think it's great that I tell my story, because most of your listeners are probably not going to be as much of a wreck as I was. But I leaned in, I discovered Tenacity, and really those 2 years where I built up my willingness to fail, in particular for me, and my tenacity, like that got me to my dream. In just 2 years, I'm traveling the world with the Rolling Stones. Like, holy cow.
Yeah, wow.
But more
than
than
a lot
that,
of people, that's like that's exciting.
But so what did I get? Like, I got the job. That's my dream. And I went to like 20-something countries, and that was great. But what I really got was I learned how to try and to be tenacious. And moving forward, that has just made a tremendous difference in my life all the way through. I mean, I have several companies that I'm very proud of. A couple of them have been voted best in the industry. But more important than the work stuff, like, I just like my life. Like, I'd like it. And I like it because when I think I'd like to do something, I just do it, even if it's kind of crazy. And not that I'd blow my life up. I don't make bad decisions, but I'm not afraid to go for something that I think most people wouldn't, you know? So
let's talk about that. I often think just the making of a decision. And I use a simple example about, exercise, and just saying, you know what? Often, you don't want to exercise, and you're just like, oh. And then as soon as you make a decision, you go, okay, I'm just going to go for a jog. I'm just going to go for a swim, whatever it might be. As soon as you make that decision, you take that first step. It's easier. Like, it's not so daunting, right? And that's what you just mentioned. Yep,
absolutely. And you start to rebuild mental pathways. You build mental pathways that tell you, like, I got something out of that. So I've reinforced going to take that run or work out. And so the next day when you go to do it, you feel like these reasons not to, but you can feel and remember the reasons to do it. And so you choose that again, and now you've reinforced that, and you're making new habits in your brain. And so in your case, it's to work out. In my case, I taught myself to try. Which
So making those decisions, and once you do it, it becomes easier to make the decision, and you sort of reinforce those patterns.
Yep.
For you, I mean, you went away for 5 weeks. You said you failed, and then 2 years later, you're touring with the Rolling Stones.
Yep.
What got you through? Like, why didn't you stop then when you failed after that 5 weeks?
Because I remembered how it felt prior to this journey starting. And I also still had a dream. Like, I had now touched it. I had lived it. And so I failed to. There's this devastating moment when they call me on the bus and they go, "Hey man, upper management found out about you because of this. You've got to leave like now." And you're like, "Shit." But you're knocked down. But when you start thinking about it, you're like, "Look at what I did. Like I freaking tried. Like I got out there, I snuck past the cops every night, the security. I almost got arrested 3 times. I had walking pneumonia at one point. I slept in my car. I drove all night and somehow didn't drive off the road. That's kind of awesome. And I made it for 5 weeks. So yeah, in the end I failed, but it didn't kill me. It wasn't the end of the world. And I've got this great story and I'm encouraged and I've actually touched my dream. And luckily it still seemed interesting to me. It still seemed like something I wanted to do. Like I might have done it for 5 weeks and gone like, whoa. Like I've hired people at my companies who at the end of the first loadout, they're just like, whoa, I had no idea it was this hard. I don't want to do this. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for stopping by. I've only had a couple of those, but I can think of one in particular. He was just like, this is hard. I'm like, yep, sure is. But, it still was appealing to me, thankfully. But every step of the journey is like this micro reward. Yeah. And those rewards just build new pathways and reinforce, yeah.
What do you have, like early on, did you have any, I don't know, tools that you went to help reinforce that dream? Was it meditation or did you have affirmations? Like,
no, and those weren't. I mean, this is 1987. If you asked people nowadays, like 100 people, if you asked them what is meditation and what are affirmations, a good chunk of those people would know. I think in 1987, almost nobody would even know what that meant, right? Yeah. Certainly not the circles I was running in. No, I didn't. If I were doing it today, I might. That's something that, I haven't really embraced either of those totally, but every now and then I will. I've done a lot of work, which I go into in the book, with psychedelics, and the soundtracks that they play for you when you're doing that medicine. I can lay down and put that soundtrack on, and put blinders over my eyes, and with no medicine in me, can really go into a state where I'm in a deep, thoughtful state, and I think more open. And I know what the medicine does. The medicine downregulates your default mode network and inspires you to think differently. I feel like I get into a similar state just by doing that. So I think you'd call that meditating. And I do that once in a while.
You can do that with just music.
Yep. Yeah. Well, especially after the journey music, they call it. So at least that's what my circle calls it, but
that's without psychedelics. You're saying you listen to journey music.
Yeah, so I've done it with, and I think that has set the state for me that when I listen to music like that in headphones with blinders on, just laying still, it takes me back. My brain goes, "Oh, we're going to do this now. We're going to do some deep thinking." Right. So is it as deep as when you're in the medicine? No, but it's really useful. And I think really a great way to work out a problem.
So that's a thing you do like every day or every so often, or just when you think you need to?
No, I do that with big things coming up. And honestly, I will do it if I can't get in to see, like I'll go do maybe once a year. I don't want to make it sound like I do a lot of psychedelics. I do not. I go about once a year and just do a tune-up on myself. But I usually center that around a big decision. Like, I got this really big decision, and, it might be nice to think about it with fresh eyes and put my brain in that state to really work on it. And so my early work with psychedelics was all about fixing my traumas and trying to be the truest version of myself. Yeah. And I think I've done a pretty reasonable job of that. I'll never be fixed. Like it'll be a we never end up being exactly whatever, but I feel really good about the progress I made.
Yeah.
And I will say, as evidence to that, when I go into the medicine, I used to just go straight back to trauma moments and work them out. And now when I go into medicine, I tend to start working on the future. I'm like, all right, what am I going to do about this? So that's perhaps evidence that I've resolved enough of my past that it's time to look forward. Maybe I just don't feel like looking in those filing cabinets anymore. Either way, I tend to about once a year go in and work on something, some big decision, something.
So when you say psychedelics, what kind of psychedelics and what got you into that? Was it a guided thing or was it just self-experimentation?
Absolutely guided. I have a huge fear of drugs and addiction. My dad was addicted to alcohol and cigarettes, and in the music industry, there's so much of it that I was very proud to say that I made it my whole music industry career without ever getting into drugs at all. Yeah. Even marijuana, didn't want any part of it. And the pandemic was particularly hard on me. Fear of failure it became an engine for me. It stopped being a wall and it started being an engine. And so I realized I could do these things, but I still didn't want to fail. So I think I pushed myself harder because of that fear. I took that thing that was holding me back and turned it into rocket fuel for my life. Because it still mattered a lot to me. It was not the end of the world to fail, but I really didn't want to. And so
the failure became the motivation to...
Yeah, I turned my enemy into my fuel, which is fantastic, right? And so I pushed myself through, life, whatever. And then the pandemic hits, and 4 of my companies are entirely live entertainment based, and all of a sudden I've got 200 employees and I have no income at all. And so I spent the next 18 months trying to figure out how to survive and take care of them. And the reality was you just couldn't take care of them with no money coming in. You just couldn't. And so little by little I was calling for 18 months going, well, I guess today I'll call this person in and tell them I'm cutting their pay in half. And then I'm going to let this person go. And it was just a awful attrition. And that felt like failure to me because I was failing them. Yeah. And it messed me up. I wasn't okay. And so coming out of the pandemic, a dear friend pulled me aside and said, hey man, you're not okay. And I'm like, oh, I'm not. I know I'm not. I mean, I don't think I should be, and I'm not. And he said, I got this thing I want you to try. And I'm like, great. And he goes, it's therapy. I'm like, awesome. Because I've always been all about therapy. I did some great work with EMDR, all about getting some help. And he starts describing it, and I'm like, something doesn't sound right about this. It sounds a little too spiritual, the words he's using. And then finally he says, and then, the medicine. I go, well, what medicine? Well, they use medicine, and I go, what do you mean they use medicine? And he goes, well, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're talking about drugs. No way. Zero chance. Never. Too afraid of addiction, breaking my brain. Nope. And he's like, okay. He goes, well, doing this work made a huge difference in my life. Do you mind if I continue to share the story? I'm like, go ahead, but don't make it a sales pitch because I will never do this. And what he described to me was so compelling that I never let on to him that I was interested, but I started reading about it. And I read some things, and I read some books, and I watched some YouTube videos. And then I called him and had some questions. And he's like, oh, you're interested? And I said, introduce me to a couple more people who have done it, if you don't mind. And he did. And what I found in the descriptions were things like, people 20 years after their work that they've done with this medicine through tests that Johns Hopkins have done, you poll them 20 years later and they'll still tell you, most of them will tell you it was the most impactful day of their life, or one of the first day they did medicine. You're like, what? Greatly impact, in a wonderful way. Yeah. And just all these statistics that it's not addictive. And so finally I was like, oh God, okay. Yeah, it was terrifying. I think it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. When you bring it down to a moment, right?
So you made
so
a
you asked
decision to
what
do
medicine.
it, but then lead up to that, you had this
Yeah,
fear, overwhelming fear.
absolutely afraid. I was afraid that I would get addicted. I was afraid I'd break my brain. I was afraid I'd wet the
Yeah.
bed. Like I was afraid, and so I am. But to answer your question, it's a very legitimate facility. There's a doctor on site and a nurse and incredible people who are very thoughtful and caring, and I just love them. And it certainly made me feel like they loved me, and but they don't tell you what the medicine is. And that also made me really nervous. And I thought it'd be one thing, like you think there's like 7 things. There's mushrooms, there's ayahuasca, there's peyote, there's LSD. Like it's going to be one of these, right? And what I've learned now is that there's over 300 types of psychedelics. They all are subtly different, and they gave me multiple things. So they gave you multiple things with the idea that they would hit you at the same time, different ramp up rates and all that. And so I think I had 3-4 at least substances in me that hit at the same time. And it was wild. Like it was.
How would you describe that experience?
I would describe it thusly. It was indescribable.
Uh-huh.
So everything I describe, I'm telling you what it was like. And this is me telling you, no matter what I describe. If I describe this can, I'm describing the can as me. I stopped being me. And so how do you it was nuts for about 10 minutes. And then I settled down, and I had this really beautiful moment where I just went like, I had a lot of crazy visuals that I couldn't resolve, and I don't think they're important. I don't think I saw the future, the past, the whatever. And then I settled in and said, well, there's this sphere, and I'm just inside this 16-foot sphere, and there's something in the middle of it. And by the way, I know all this because you're recording yourself. You're wearing 2 microphones, a main and a backup, and you play it back later. And then I go, there's something in the middle of it, and you can still hear the fear in my voice, and it's been extreme. And then very softly, I think about it for a minute, and I go, it's me. And the moment I said that, I envisioned myself at the center of the circle, kind of sitting up in the yoga pose, like with my hands on my knees, Yeah. And I was like, what do I do with me? And then I said, they told me to start with crap. I'm missing a word here. Gratitude. How do I forget the word gratitude? I'm tired. No, I'm not on drugs right now, and haven't had any for a very long time. They said start with gratitude, and I said, okay, I'm grateful for the person who told me about this. This is fascinating, and I'm grateful to me for doing this.
This is the guide asking you questions.
No, this is me. They don't interact with you.
This is you.
Just you. And but they taught me ahead of time what to do. And so I was going, okay, they told me to start with gratitude. And I go, and I'm grateful to me. And I go, this is scary, but I do the scary things. And then I started talking about me, and the pace of my speech ramped up very quickly to be almost a run-on sentence. And for the next 5 hours and 20 minutes, from a very unique perspective, I saw me and told me who I was. And then I saw my dad and told me who my dad was. And then I saw my grandfather and talked about who he was. And then I talked about how the pain had run down, and how everybody was dealing with the pain that flows through time, and how I felt like I had stopped it, but what the cost was on me, and how I had stopped it, and how I was hurting myself. And for 5 hours and 20 minutes, I just spoke as fast as I could and really laid out some things for me in a remarkable way. And so that's great to be able to say those things. But what's really great is I think I'm out of this. And finally I lifted the blinders, and I'm like, I feel okay. I guess I'm out of this. But I'm talking to someone an hour later, and all of a sudden, I was just excited that I was okay, and I didn't feel like I'd hurt my brain or whatever. And I go, oh my gosh. And they go, what? I said, I feel differently about my father, like completely differently. And that's pretty miraculous. And one of the things they said to me before I started the therapy that was a real red flag for me, I was like, there's so many things they're saying that just sound like total BS. They said, well, it's kind of like 8 years of therapy in 5 hours. And I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. I feel like it was about 8 years worth of therapy in 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
I feel
so you got
like
a recording of that 5 hours.
Totally. And that's part of it is you need to go back in, and this facility does a wonderful job of making sure that you do that. You go back in and you go through your transcript with a counselor who's used to doing this sort of work, and they facilitate you going through, guide you going through your manuscript, and even I've found help me find some hidden meaning in it too. So,
yeah.
Yep.
So your this fear of failure, did that come from watching your dad and seeing him fail? Is that where you think it created from?
Yeah, I think, our lives are a story, right? So, yeah. But the story that tracks the most for me is that my dad had a personality disorder. He was never officially diagnosed with it. It's really hard for me to talk bad about my dad because I love him very much, but he would at times just get very angry and start yelling. And I was always trying to figure out why and what I was doing wrong. And it took me a long time to realize that I wasn't doing anything wrong. And I later watched him as I was an adult, do that with his lady friends and things, his girlfriends, and just be like, woof, he's done that to me. And that, so formative year type stuff. I think my dad's dad hurt him a lot. Yeah. And I think that impacted my dad in ways that were really, really hard on him. And some of that flowed into me. And I think that my dad hurt me way less than his dad hurt him, I think. So I'm grateful that he did his best, but his best still left some pretty heavy marks on me.
So that fear of failure after that experience, and I didn't think we were going to go down this route of psychedelics, but it's quite fascinating. Yeah. Has it shifted now? Do you feel like it's not something as much a part of you or at all?
Yeah. I still have some of it. I think I have an appropriate amount, and I think it's the fear that belongs to me. It's not the fear that you're doing wrong when there's no evidence. Like there's not that sort of broken wiring from my childhood. I feel like I've done a really good job of healing that. We all need our fear, right? If you're a gazelle in the, out on the plains, and you're not afraid, and you walk up to a bunch of lions and say, "What's up, guys?" You're going to be lunch, right? We need fear. Fear is good. Yeah. But I think I have an appropriate amount of fear. I still think that I'm more in tune to be afraid than most, but I've done tremendous work with it. And I'm not desperate to prove things anymore. I now I'm still driven and motivated, but I get motivated by what's exciting to me. Like, I'm not like, oh, I need to do this. Like, if I don't do this, then this is how I can prove that I'm okay. Yeah. And now it's like, no, I'm okay. Like, I'm really okay. Like, right. I'm not perfect, but I am exactly Scott. Whatever Scott is, that's me. And so he doesn't need to be perfect. He doesn't need to prove anything. Nobody's going to yell at him. And if they do yell at him, it's because they have a problem, not him. And that really has settled in for me. And it took about, they say those things happen in your formative years, like 3 to 7 years old, are like the big years. And so I'm 57. It's taken me about half a century-ish to get to that point, but I feel really good about the progress I've made. And I highly recommend, I think there's 2 chapters in the book really that go into trauma towards the end. It's certainly not what the book's about. But they talk about how those things mold you, and that if you can look in the mirror and see yourself, really see yourself, you can make a huge difference in how you handle yourself. And the book's on being tenacious, but no matter what you're being in life, the biggest factor in whatever it is that you're doing or endeavoring is you. So if you can make you better at a really core level and do things that are more true to yourself, then that's just huge no matter what you're trying to do. But especially if you're trying to run down some mountains and be tenacious.
I think for me, like, if I look at my life now, and I've really thought about this a lot in the last couple of years, is that I'm still driven and I'm still motivated. And sometimes I look at it, I lost my dad 3 years ago, and then I broke up with my partner a year after that, and a lot of big changes, right? I started to really look at life and go, what is this all about? Because I'm very purpose-driven, want joyfulness in my life. And I'm starting to be really comfortable with being okay with just how things are.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
But it's still really hard.
Yeah. It's fantastic, especially if you're hurting yourself with it. Now, I don't want to let go enough that I stop being motivated. Like, I always have 8 spinning plates, and I think some of that is just because that's how I'm wired. But if those plates start dropping to the ground, I don't freak out. Like, I'm doing a lot of things.
That's where I freak out about. Like, it's like, because I get to this point where I'm starting to, my dialogue changes, and I watch people look at me going, I'm just like, it's not about money. And sure, I want money and riches and freedom and all that sort of stuff, but it doesn't seem to be about that. And people look at you differently. Yeah. And I've noticed that. But in my heart, I'm just like, okay, but am I stepping back too far? And does it feel like giving up?
Yeah, you don't want to do that either. And I think I've been clear that I don't. I push it. I am constantly doing things. I'm not giving up, but I'm not letting fear hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm not letting fear hurt me.
How do you deal with expectations then? Like the expectations that you put on yourself about how you want your businesses or your success to look like?
I think a lot of my success came from unreasonable expectations.
A lot of your success?
And a lot of it did, right? Mm-hmm. But and so I can be grateful that I have a big, beautiful home and that I have the financial freedom to fly around the world and do things. And I have the freedom to, work on projects. Like, one of the things I do is music, and I absolutely hemorrhage money making music, just light it on fire. Like, there's a country artist named Brad Paisley. He just asked me to be his opening act again. And so I was just in Europe playing in front of thousands of people as his opening act, having the time of my life, singing songs I wrote that mean something to me, and hearing applause, and doing this with the best group of, like, this amazing band, and my girlfriend sings with me too, and like, it's a dream.
Yeah.
But I got paid about $5,000 and I spent about 50. Because that's kind of how it works in the music industry. Until you, like, the record labels are investing in you until you tip the scales. And at my age, as a hobby, I'm never going to tip the scales. I'm just going to keep occasionally dumping money into a tour. And I have absolutely no regrets. But I'm grateful that I was overdriven and afraid enough that I built all these great companies that allow me the freedom to have fun like that.
To do that fun stuff, yeah.
But I'm also grateful that as an adult, I've looked in the mirror, I've done the work, and I've figured out how to not be so hard on myself. And I wouldn't build a company today. I just don't want to. I don't want to work that hard at anything, probably. I say that. I work so hard at everything I do, but I don't want all the expectation that comes with that when everyone's counting on you and all that. I don't know. And who knows? You know, you might check back with me in a year and I might be like, well, I started another company. Whoops. But I don't feel like I need to do any of that right now. I'm having fun. You know, I'm making music. I'm writing a book. That was fun for me. Like, I'm enjoying talking to you. You're a really engaging person, and we're having a good time. This book was me talking to the readers, and I enjoyed it. Like, I was like, I got something to share that might help these people. I'm just going to sit down and write. And I actually enjoyed it. And I love making music. I love going on the road and performing. These are things I love. I'm going to do those things. I'm going to do them. I'm going to work really hard. They have to be good. Like, it's going to have to be really good. I'm going to work really hard at it, but I'm working really hard at something I love. And I think
have you been able to detach yourself from the expectations around that, like writing a book? Yeah. You know, you just enjoy the process. You want to share your story with the people who want to listen. Mm-hmm. Is there any expectation about, you know, going into it going, oh, I'm going to sell millions and be number one bestseller?
No, I expected I wouldn't. You know, I'm not famous. Like, people in Nashville in the music industry know who I am. That's a pretty small circle, right? So, I didn't expect to sell millions. I'd like to try. So I dream big, but I don't have the expectations. So I pushed. I was like, all right, what does it take to have a New York Times bestseller? And everyone's like, you're not going to have that as a first-time author with this topic. Like, you haven't done anything unbelievable that makes everyone go like, whoa. And like, they're like, it's a self-help book, but you're not trust me, just don't. And I go, okay, but you didn't answer my question. What would it take? Like, let's just try. Let's have fun trying. And I did try, and I had fun trying, and I did not get on the New York Times bestsellers list. I was number one in Amazon for a day, and then the next day I was number two. So that felt good in sports and entertainment. But, you know, that's not the New York Times list. That's the one you want. But
that's okay. So, I mean, dreaming big, detaching yourself from an expectation, but still putting in the work.
Right. And don't hurt yourself when you don't get it. Like, don't kill yourself over it, because that just hurts you. And why hurt you? This is your life. Enjoy it. Like, man, I definitely spent a lot of time in my younger life hurting myself way more than I needed to.
Yeah.
By just being hard on myself.
I still do. I think I still do. Too hard on myself.
Well, I invite you to consider being a little kinder to yourself, or a lot.
Yeah.
And not to say that, you know, I mean, you obviously are a balanced and together guy, but I think we all could stand to just be a little easier on ourselves. You know, you don't need to make yourself feel bad to motivate yourself. Maybe you do, but try to fix that. Like, I don't need to make myself feel bad to motivate myself.
No. But then, you know, that takes work again.
It does.
Be kind to yourself. That takes work. And it's fear there.
Yeah.
To do what you did and have that psychedelic journey, you know, I'd feel the same. Never done it before myself. But you know what? You think about it, you go, I'm going to wreck my brain. I'm going to have some sort of bloody awakening that's going to freak the shit out of me.
You know, back on that, I said, I'm going to break my brain. I'm going to be addicted, or I'm going to wet the bed. After I did it, I said, no, I know what I was afraid of. I was afraid that I would see me and I would not like what I saw. That's where the real fear was. But I didn't even realize it. But in the medicine I did. Like, it's, So.
You liked what you saw?
I loved what I saw because it was me and so imperfect, right? But it was like, of course, this is me. Like, it's just me. As funny as that sounds,
it's incredible.
It really is. It really is. And I write, like, it's in a lot of my writing. You know, there's about expectations, and you know, it's certainly in the book. But you know, I've got a song coming out. I'm not sure when it'll make it out, but probably 2 singles from now. But I'm on Spotify, by the way. Please go listen, because artists love it when you listen to their stuff. Scott Scovill, Spotify, Amazon, all those. Apple. But it's and my second psychedelic journey, my dad had just died, and super impactful for me. And I don't get a lot of visions. Some people do. And I all of a sudden I kept saying, like, I see these layers, and there's like this dim bluish light, and it's like brown layers. Like, what am I seeing? And then I would go talk about something else, and then I'd be like, these layers. And I'm like down in, and all of a sudden it hit me after like an hour and a half and 3 or 4 times describing this and then getting away from it. I go, oh my God, I'm in my dad's grave. And the moment I said that, the casket formed around me. Like, I was looking at moonlight on the hole dug in the earth, and I was laying at the bottom of the hole. Like, the hole was open. But the moment I said it, the casket formed around me, which this will terrify everyone who's thinking about psychedelics. But I'm claustrophobic, and I'm in a casket, and I'm like, whew. And the funny thing is, I was okay. I was like, whoa, please tell me I'm alone. I looked to the left and looked to the right, and he was not in there with me. And I was like, okay, why am I here? And I thought, all right, I've just buried my dad. Maybe there are some things that I need to leave here with him. And I worked out and thought about what I could leave behind that I didn't need. And so I wrote a song, it's not out yet, 6 Feet Down and Staring Up, about that. And like the bridge is, there'll be no would haves, regrets or should haves for things I wish to God that I had done. And there's another line that says, expectations killing me. And I make it sound like a harsh song. It's actually a happy song. It's like, I don't want to be 6 feet down and staring up, asking myself if the given that I gave is good enough. Wondering when it's all said and I'm done, did it add up to love when I'm 6 feet down and staring up? It's actually a happy song, but it's inspired by being in my dad's grave. So, yeah.
Common experience. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. And I do think I left some things there that belong with my dad and not in my heart.
Man, powerful. Love it.
Yeah.
Tenacious. Get a copy, have a read.
Get 8 copies, have 8
Make a
reads.
New York Times bestseller.
Make it a New York Times bestseller. I think that ship has sailed. That generally happens right away, or it doesn't. But I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the book, and I love it when people reach out to me and say, hey, man, your book is helping me. Thank you. And so totally worth it. Like, right? Like, that's what I kept telling myself. If I help one person, then it's worth it. And the book released, and a day and a half later, this is a lot of book to read in a day and a half. A day and a half later, a guy hit me on social media and said, man, I know your book's not about addiction, but I'm 3 months sober, clean. And he said, I've been just tearing through self-help books, and yours is the one I'm latching onto. And I feel like I've started reading it a second time. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, I need to reach out to this guy, and I'm glad I found you. And he said, I'm just going to read this book on repeat. And I was like, I did it. Like a day and a half in, I'm like, I helped somebody. Like, it's worth it. And there's been many since, but man, that first guy made me feel like $1 million. So thank you, whoever you are.
What I love about your story today is, I mean, obviously being tenacious, keep on going, the progression that you shared from big companies to doing some totally different stuff now, and enjoying it.
Really enjoying it, right? You get one life, like. You know, cool. I like to say, and I know we're probably running long, but I like to say, live your life like you're writing a book, and ask yourself what would make the next chapter more interesting. What do you want to read next? And I like that metaphor because at some point I'm going to be older, and my body's not going to have the energy it does now, and I want to be sitting in my rocking chair reading the metaphorical book of my life. And going, I remember I did this. So I'm trying to write the best book I can with my life so that when I'm older, I've got something to thumb through that really makes me feel good about my life.
Yeah. A life with least regret. Awesome, man. How can people best reach out to you?
tenaciousbook.com.
Yep.
Tenaciousbook.com or scottscovill.com. And I'm Scott Scovill on socials. I'm Scott Scovill Creative is more my creative outlet one. Scott Scovill's my personal, but it's a pretty unusual name, so easy to find. Oh, there is no E on it. It's not like the Scoville scale for hotness with the E on the end. So Scott Scovill with no E on the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll stick the links in the show notes, guys. Scott, man, pleasure. Really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing and coming on.
I enjoyed it also. Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed our time together.
Yeah, me too. Guys, check it out, thehiddenwhy.com. All the show notes will be there, links to Scott and the book, of course. So pick up a copy. And until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. Speak soon.
Cheers.
Awesome, man. Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in this week to this interview. I hope you enjoyed the conversation we had. Make sure you check it out at thehiddenwhy.com for all the show notes and links to our guest. And if you have any comments, any suggestions for the show, please make sure you reach out as well. Also, would like to just ask a favor. If you do like what you're listening to, if you love what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe, whether you're listening to this on iTunes, wherever it might be. Subscribe to the podcast so you can stay up to date with all the latest episodes and some exciting changes happening this year at The Hidden Why, including the launch of our new website, which will be updated very soon. So watch this space for that, guys. And once again, live more fully, have more meaning, find more joy. We'll see you around the next interview.